Hi, I'm Andy Acton.
And I'm Chris Strevens.
This is Dentology, the Business of Dentistry podcast. I think when you get to the conversation about family businesses and the kind of that, it being a thick connection in terms of that heritage, I always find it quite intriguing to see how that works. And it's obviously worked really well for Murray and his family
3 generations
in the business. Yeah,
it's great. I mean, I love generational businesses, and as we said, precious on him to not screw it up. Yeah. But I tell you what, guys, you've got to listen to this one, if only for the dead bodies.
I don't think we've had an episode in the 140 plus recordings. It
was a bit of a surprise, wasn't it?
I don't think we've had dead bodies turn up. So that's worth tuning into.
If that's not like clickbait.
Yeah, exactly. But also the work he does away from dentistry, helping the emergency services. I'd never really considered how valuable that work is. But yeah,
what was it? The Rapid Relief Team. I'd never even heard of it.
No.
But I tell you, education. I found that education as well.
But no, really good episode. Really enjoyable guy.
No, good lad.
Yeah, people are going to enjoy this one. This is it.
It is. Looking forward to this one, as always.
Always
very interesting.
Always am. And to our listeners, just a message to our listeners before we start. If you listen to this and you enjoy it, if you could share it with somebody, that would be amazing because that helps our reach. And if you could subscribe as well, that'd be great because new episodes every Monday morning at 7 a.m. We've been doing it now for 140 plus episodes. And every morning, 7 a.m., we will deliver you new content. And if you subscribe, you will find out about it. And
people recognise our voices, which is a bit weird, isn't it? Really? But anyway, that's another issue when people come up to you and say, "Oh, well, you do a podcast." Anyway, let's start this one.
So, today we are very fortunate. Yet another expert in their field, absolutely lovely chap. We're joined by Murray Welch, and Murray is a surgery design consultant at Anglian Dental. How are you, Murray?
Thanks, Andy and Chris. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, really
good.
Welcome. Good. Welcome. It's nice. When we started this as a piece of work, we said we wanted to do 3 things. We wanted to hear people's life stories because people are always interesting.
Yep.
And most people go, no, I've got nothing to say. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
People are always interesting.
No one boring.
No, if we can share some business tips, that would be amazing.
No pressure.
But they naturally fall out of the conversation, and we always have fun. So I don't doubt we're going to put a tick in every single one of those boxes today. But what we're building is a body of work so that either aspiring dentists, associates, practice owners, whoever in dentistry, even the trade, can come to Dentology and get answers to their burning questions. And I think the world that you sit in designing practices, helping build out practices, providing equipment, there's a lot of chat around people refurbing and squats. So I think it's going to be a great conversation. But that's just the work part. We're going to start with you, Murray, as an individual. I think people are always interested in kind of, what makes the man.
Because he's young, isn't he? Looking at those of you who aren't watching it on YouTube, but he is a young-looking chappie.
I think
in comparison to the older people like myself and yourself, Andy.
I was going to say, I think compared to both of us, he is young.
Definitely on the young side.
Some of our students might be looking at Murray and going, really?
Really are. I think he's an old bloke. Yeah.
It's all relative. It's all relative. So if we go back to the beginning, thinking about your childhood, in what way did your parents set you up to be the person you are today? What was your childhood like?
Yeah, it's a good question. Fortunate to have 2 very good parents, actually. And got very well looked after. And I'm one of 4, so...
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Are you oldest, youngest, or in the middle? Number 2.
Number 2, yeah. So I had the older bully brother. Got me into shape. Yeah.
Excellent.
It's good. But
have you got a brother? Have you got a younger brother?
No, I got 2 sisters younger.
Ah, so you were then protective brothers over sisters.
Well, I could then take it out on my sisters. No.
Oh.
Just pass it through the generation.
Yeah, nice.
That's the way it works.
I like that. Nothing about gender there. That's good. Just push it down anyway. Great, man.
No, it's good having someone 2 years older because, he learned to ride a bike and I had to learn to ride a bike. He played football, so I'd play football. So everything he did, I did kind of roughly at the same time. And it's good, actually. Number 2 is, I reckon.
It's funny. I've only got one brother and he's 2 years older than me. And for me, there was kind of a tipping point that when we were kind of 8 and 10, 9 and 11. But when we kind of got to 12 and 14, the 14-year-old wasn't keen on having his 12-year-old brother hanging around. And there was this kind of gap that started to open, that when he kind of got into those teenage years, when we were kids and we were younger, it worked really well. But there was a definite kind of separation. As he got older, he grew up kind of way quicker than his younger brother was.
Yeah, mine's 4 years older, so you can imagine 12 and 16.
Yeah.
And he buggered off to join the police, so I never saw him after.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's not go down brothers route.
And you're a North London family, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Chase Farm Hospital I was born in. So
oh wow! So are you a Gooner or a Spurs fan?
No, don't start this one, please. Yeah. I saw your coffee cap earlier. So
yeah, there we go.
Oh.
Must be a Spurs fan. I would have thought.
I think probably a Spurs fan.
But it's okay. This is an open forum. We're quite happy. No one is. Oh, I'm sorry. I think the signal's gone.
But it's funny. In days of old, football was a very territorial thing, wasn't it? When you kind of go back to grandparents' generations, and as a community thing, quite often football comes up in topics because the link from business to sport and sport to business is really strong. But also from a social community point of view, I don't necessarily know whether we have something in the modern era that kind of meets that kind of test in terms of what brings local people together. And historically, it would have been very much kind of a man's game, wouldn't it? The men would have gone to the football. But that kind of has been lost over the years, in that way more people watch it on TV now. I don't think people kind of commute to their ground almost like a religion on a regular basis.
And even the players, the players used to be from around their locals, didn't they? They're not. It's quite an interesting one.
Yeah. It's still true. There's nothing else like is there kind of in social, generally in social, like
it's so it's like gladiatorial, isn't it? It's like that chanting and shouting, and it is one of the few things that gets people as riled up.
But also in life, people kind of are very quick to change things if they're not working. People change their job. Quite often people sell a business if it's not working. They might try another business. People even change their partner, but it's incredibly rare, and you would have to go a long way to find somebody who would change their football team. But the thing is, it's important, isn't it? Kind of why is that so deep rooted and deep seated? It doesn't matter how bad they are. They can be terrible, but you will still stand by them. But you wouldn't do that with other elements of your life. In football, for some reason, you put up with it.
Unless you were some of Henry's shallow friends in year 12, who every season used to change depending on who won the league.
I think once you kind of go through puberty into that rule's gone. You're not allowed to do that anymore.
So were you a football player when you were young, or did you do any other sports? Or
yeah, well, I went to school, North London. So football flat out. Yeah, I don't actually follow it all that much these days, but football, cricket as well. We did quite a lot of cricket at school. It's quite unusual for a North London school, but I love sport. Still do a bit of it now, but yeah.
So there's another element to your life I'd like to have a chat before we get into the dental bit. And you do charity work with an organisation called the Rapid Relief Team, which takes you into support fire crews, and you were there supporting the fire crews on that fateful day at Grenfell. And I still see, obviously we all see, I mean, I live in London, and if ever I go to West London, you still see Grenfell Tower there. Can you just tell us about the work you do with them and what that experience was like from your perspective?
Yeah, that was truly amazing. I mean, the Rapid Relief Team, it's known as RRT, that's what it stands for. And it's been going quite a few years now, but it's quite unique in that it supports emergency services. So a lot of the time, emergency services are going to these sometimes pretty horrific incidents, and they do an amazing job. These firefighters or ambulance and police crews, but there's not much support for them. So the work of RRT is being on site quickly. It's a response, a rapid response. You have to mobilise, within hours, and it's a hot meal. It's a friendly smile. It's care and just shelter for the people on the ground. Really, there's nothing like they've spent 4 or 5 hours right in tents to come out and be given a nice hot meal, which we cook on a barbecue. Hot drinks.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so we would often go to these events and there's a couple of barbecue vans. You can tow them anywhere, and then you put up the side and start cooking burgers and sausages and knock out. It's quite a good system. I mean, you've got fridges and loads of drinks ready and food.
Wow.
How do they assess the scale?
I was going to say, what's the trigger to engage the RR?
I guess if it's just so one of my children, he's a police officer in London. So he is he works in a specialist unit. So quite a lot of it involves driving to get to incidents quickly. But when he attends, quite often those incidents might wrap up quite quickly. Yeah. So I was just interested in the trigger for you. Obviously, Grenfell was a relatively easy one because it was clearly a serious, large-scale incident. So that would fall into the category of needing RRT to help. But what's kind of the measurement for when you would go out? Because what you don't do is turn out, crack your barbecue van going, and suddenly it disappears. It's like, we've got a load of chicken wings now. How do you kind of measure that?
Yeah, it's a good question actually, and I don't get involved in the kind of the leadership of it, but I do know they are quite closely in talks with people high up in the response, police and the fire, and they'd often make the call like, we've got a big incident here, and it's typically ones like fires or where it's going to be on site for a long time.
Yeah, so probably where there's lots of crews. I guess that's my son. My daughter's boyfriend is a firefighter, and he said sometimes it's like, they send so many crews to certain events, don't they? And it just goes on forever.
Yeah.
What's intriguing to me is I'd never considered the thought of the hard and traumatic work they do, and coming out to a smiling face, somebody they can just have a chat to, hot cup of tea and some food. I'd never thought about how that will be important as a part of a support structure for the emergency service person, particularly going back to the Grenfell experience. I can't imagine how horrendous that would have been as a day. It must have been truly terrible. So to come out and just see somebody, a nice smiling face, must have really lifted their spirits. Yeah, and it's amazing. Like, particularly at Grenfell, it's probably the most memorable I've done, where you're kind of let through the cordon and right up close. Actually, we were very close because the firemen were coming out and just literally on site, and you got these hardened firemen, some of them experienced guys, and there's a particular unit within the fire brigade, I forget what they're called now. They're kind of the elite, sort of called out for these sort of the worst, really. Yeah. And these are experienced guys, and seeing these guys coming out literally shattered physically, but then mentally, some of them were literally walking around like zombies and saying they've never seen stuff they saw, and sort of going into detail and wanted to talk to people. It was actually just, it was completely unforgettable that day. But
how did you get involved with it?
Just through a friend. One of my friends does a lot there, and it was, I don't do an awful lot, I don't do as much as I should do, but there was such a need, and that spanned about a whole week. So it was kind of just ringing around like, who can help? And that was the first one I did, and I've done a few sort of smaller events since that. But no, it's just incredible experience, really. And the emergency services go through so much, and we take it for granted a lot of times, don't we? We expect to call a number and get someone out, and we don't think about the people behind that sort of service. Really.
Yeah, and they are people. Like you say, they are people. And in that moment, it's easy to forget that they are people with families, parents, and kids.
Some of the stuff they see is like horrendous, isn't it?
Yeah.
The logistics though is amazing, isn't it? I was just thinking, you've suddenly you get a call, and as you say, you then hook up a barbecue, but then someone's got to. There must be either that food in store in a freezer or something, and all that stuff to suddenly bring it all together as a coordinated response. It's quite a lot. Yeah. It's amazing, really.
But it's interesting. I'm sort of sitting there thinking, so you're Anglian dental, which is kind of, there's a heavy logistics element to what you do. And I'm thinking you've got RRT, and there's a heavy logistics element. So I can see where there kind of be a crossover and a fit there. Yeah, interesting work. And from a profile point of view, I wasn't really aware of RRT until kind of we were talking before, and I had a look into it. And it's one of those things that I don't think it has much prominence. I had no idea. And I'd not even, notwithstanding family members being in kind of the emergency service, I'd never really thought. They'd never mentioned it.
They'd never mentioned it to me, have you?
No, it never really occurred to me that would be a really valuable service.
And it's funny, now you mention it, you do see it sometimes on the TV, don't you? When they're doing the sort of like the pan around, you can see these guys with a gazebo giving.
Big red tent.
Yes. I'd never really thought about it. I just thought they were part of the fire service. It's amazing, really. Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah.
So switching to the dental bit, you joined the family business back in 2012. as an apprentice, round the kitchen table. You were 14 years old. So what was going on around the kitchen table when you were 14?
Without giving my age away, I think I was actually 18 when I joined. But yeah, but
We can edit that out.
Yeah, it's fine. We'll make you older.
I just had the big birthday last week, actually. But yeah, all good. Yeah, a family business is an interesting one, isn't it? And a lot of dentists are family businesses, aren't they? I mean,
Yeah.
it's interesting working with a lot of our clients. Have the same challenges, and the strong points. There's also challenges in a family business. So, but yeah, I guess it was a bit of a default for me as Grandad started it, and then.
It's quite interesting. I wonder if you sort of do you have that generational thing? So, I presume your grandfather, then your father, then you, or something. So, is that sort of thing that you'll go to a dentist who worked with your dad? Probably not your granddad. Maybe, no, but probably not. And it's sort of like generational. It's a fascinating thing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, there's not many, but there's a few that still remember Grandad. He probably hasn't been he passed away last year, but he hasn't been in the business for probably 20 years, 15 years, something like that. But there's still that people.
There'll still be some people, yeah.
Some of our old, long-standing, particularly around the sort of Winchmore Hill area where Grandpa was quite strong. Yeah.
It's interesting what you say about the family thing. I remember when Bill Gates started Microsoft, he basically employed all his friends. And his view around that was, they're people I trust. They're people I trust. They will not let me down, and there's no guarantee that it's going to be successful. But one thing that I'm never going to have to doubt is the trust that I have with them. And I think with family, I think that comes as well because, sure, the people that work in the team are committed. We hire as well as we can, but they are people that work in the business. It's not the same as family, and that seems to kind of be quite strong in what you've just said as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a book, isn't there? The Speed of Trust.
Yes.
Can't be Patrick Lencioni or someone, but that's so true, isn't it? Where there's high levels of trust, stuff just gets done a lot quicker, doesn't it? And
absolutely.
Achieves an awful lot.
Are there other family members in the business along with yourself?
Yes, it's family owned, family run, but I wouldn't say it's family run in that sense. We've had to, I guess, as the business has grown, business had to grow up as well, and we don't think of it as a family business. Some of us operate in a leadership position, some of us don't. And there's 4 family members in it: my dad, my uncle, and my brother, and myself. But I'd say it's run as a bit more of a business these days because it has to be because they've got to do the right thing for the business at the end of the day. Rather than
that's right.
Yeah,
family lines.
But I don't think those two things are have to work independently. I still think you can do the right thing for the business. You can protect shareholder value, and you can make good strategic decisions. And there can be family members in the business. I think quite often, when we talk about a family business, it kind of sounds like it's a bit of a lifestyle thing. It's kind of a quasi hobby, and it's just serving the needs of the family. But I think you can have family members working in the business, yet also strategically look to build that business and build shareholder value and have a vision for the future. I think
and third generation are always the tricky one.
Yes.
Yeah.
No pressure again.
No, it's certainly true. There's a lot of statistics about that actually.
There's a huge number of statistics that says first make it, second hold it, and third sometimes blow it because something to do with. I remember my wife used to work for I won't say which company, but they were really good at digging holes. And the guys came over from Ireland and basically specialised in digging holes, and they built this massive business. Digging holes, and then the second guys made the business even bigger digging holes, but the third guys weren't so keen on. And it was amazing that they just sort of they lost the focus. So it's great that you are in the business and got the focus. It's good.
So in the time that you've been involved in the business yourself, how's kind of dental engineering changed? Because I imagine whilst it's not been that long, because you're still clearly a very young man. There we go.
Well done.
That was a nice plug.
It's amazing though. So before you just say that, though, I was going to say that it is interesting when you think that you are a young man, but you've been in the business for quite a long time already.
Yeah. And that was my thinking. My thinking is that you've got a decent number of years in, but you've probably spanned that interesting era from things being kind of quite manual, traditional engineering, moving into the digital phase. So what's your take on how things have changed through your time in dentistry? This week's episode is brought to you in partnership with Ultimate Dental Business. We know as guys who have supported dentists for over 25 years and through hosting this podcast that building business skills in dentistry is vital. Time and again, we hear from dentists who tell us that they find the business side of dentistry the most challenging. And we know that stress and pressure comes from doing things we don't feel well equipped to do. That is why we are delighted to be part of Ultimate Dental Business, the new dental business hub delivering top-tier business training for dentists. Founded by Dr. Brad Thornton and Dr. Krubel Shah, Ultimate Dental Business is a response to the lack of robust dental business education currently available. Through our effective collective discussions with dentists, it was clear they most needed good structure and effective guidance to give them the knowledge and tools to be successful dental business owners and to create a business that serves them rather than the business that takes all their time and energy to keep going. To find out more about developing your own business education, click on the link in the show notes or go to ultimatedentalbusiness.com.
Yeah, it is very interesting. The rate of change in the last 5 years has really been probably more than 5 years, probably like 7 or 8 years. Yeah, really quite different. I think probably the biggest thing has been just the mindset change in that if we talk about dental engineering used to be a problem. So in our industry, all the big players, our competitors, the service game was a pain. Like everyone wanted to sell the equipment, but they didn't want to service it. And the call outs, needing an engineer today, anywhere in the country, the logistics of it was just so hard. And that led to quite a lot of poor service. Whereas that's really changed in the last 5 years, really, in that the industry's waking up and, service level agreements have come in. Things are professionalised. It's much more of a business. Equipment is now serviced annually. A lot of time in the old days, you'd only fix it if it went wrong.
Right, okay.
So it's definitely, and I guess the requirements of bodies like CQC, the more compliance, has driven dentists to spend more on their maintenance and the repairs, which has meant we've had to professionalise and increase our services, and corporatisation has changed a lot as well.
I wonder if it's also a bit value driven in the fact of, this is going to sound terrible for people in the NHS, but if you were just doing NHS with relative low value treatments, then you could sort of say, well, if the chair doesn't work for a day, then it's, do you know what I mean? But I wonder if it's because now guys are, the revenues that they're generating from the chairs and their equipment are significant. So therefore the loss of that asset to use is become more significant in their minds. So they're saying, no, I need you to sort it out. I need this done. Yeah, it's fascinating, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the expectations of, there's the Amazon sort of standard, isn't there? Like expectations are high. They expect to make a phone call, get something sorted straight away. And if you've got, a waiting room full of patients and you've got, $4,000 session booked in an hour's time, it does get challenging. So
I say for you guys, that must be really quite hard because you've obviously going to go a finite number of engineers, and then you can't have too few because then you can't deliver. But also from a cost point of view, you can't have them all sitting around drinking tea or something. It must be really hard to try and get that sweet spot.
It is, yeah. It is constant every day. It's a logistical challenge. Yeah, I started out as an engineer doing it myself, and then I sort of moved into the office managing the department and doing it myself still. So it's a baby I hold quite close to my heart, our sort of service department.
You've probably got a good idea then of how long things take. Do you know what I mean? Which is probably quite good, isn't it? The fact of you can think, well, okay, that's going to be a time frame, so therefore I know how that's going to work. So maybe your logistical hat is a better logistical hat than someone else.
Yeah. And you've, as a business, but also I think you as well, you've kind of branched out beyond just core engineering as well, because you also now do designer practices and the builder practices as well, don't you?
Yes, mostly came from my brother Lloyd, who sort of mostly got involved in the business from a building point of view, really. I guess call him a builder. We turn up to site to install these chairs, and several times we would turn up and it's been booked, arranged, and the practice is opening the next week or something, and turn up and the place is an absolute tip, and very much still a building site, and the services weren't ready, and the pipes in the floor were the wrong place, That led to quite a few challenges because, you know, we were then ending up having to come back another day, and we'd already arranged other work for that day, and all the stuff wasn't right. So then, you know, who's to blame? And it just got very messy. So after a few years in the business, probably in the sort of, I don't know exactly when it was, but closer to sort of 2015, 2014, somewhere around there, we started doing building works ourselves and moving services and installing plumbing works and electrics. And it's not hard, really. You just got to know what to do and get it done in the right time. And very quickly that spiraled. And we realised actually that there's more need in doing the fit out works. So we started off just doing single surgery refurbishments and flooring works.
Isn't it a classic sort of business thing that quite often they say, isn't it, that sometimes the simplest things are the things that help the growth? You know, you've had this business for how long? I don't know when Anglian started, but the needs of the client changed. But someone also spotted that the needs of the clients, because you could have just sat there and go, oh yeah, this is a real pain, isn't it? You know, as opposed to sort of saying, hang a minute, how do we resolve that? I think it's a fascinating one in the fact that evolution of a business. Brilliant.
You start with fixing a problem, which is the pipes are in the wrong place, the sockets aren't in the right place, the work's not done. So it's impacting our core business. So almost as a protection strategy for our core business, if we take care of the building side of things, the pipes will be in the right place. There will be the sockets where we need them. Things will be finished on time, which then means our engineering business can fit the equipment easily, but out of that comes another strand to your business.
Definitely, yeah, it's brilliant.
They say, don't they? Often the best opportunities come out of problems, challenges, and it's an example of that, really.
Yes. And talking about challenges and challenging projects, I see that you did the 11 Dental project, Samir and Shivani's practice. We know Samir very well. We've done various projects with him
and stuff.
It's an amazing looking place. I've not visited, but I've seen pictures, and Samir's kind of showing me around on kind of tours, video tours. So talk us through that, because for anybody that kind of knows the practice will understand. But if not, it's worth visiting their website. There's lots of pictures of the site on there. But kind of talk us through that as a project, because there must have been some challenges with that.
Definitely.
It's a beautiful building, and they had very clear ideas of their brand values and what that vision is, that kind of Bardi-esque look. So how did you approach that project?
What's that phrase called? Sympathetically done. Isn't it?
And it's interesting you say, because their vision was so clear, and that is actually one of the most helpful things when you're doing a project, particularly a large project like that. If a client knows what they want and is clear on that, you know, it just helps the whole project go well, because of the fact that it's you know, it just helps with design, really. And you know, not changes is probably one of the biggest challenges we come across. I mean, every project has changes, and that's to be expected. But that is one of the challenges where you do something and then the client changes their mind, so you're not having to do it all again. But the deadline doesn't change, so it does end up with those challenges. But that building is an amazing building, but it's listed, obviously. It's a grade 2 listed building. It's across several floors, and you've got no access. I mean, it's a terrace building. You've got no parking. It's in a very busy part of London. And when you're talking a 6-month project with loads of materials, it's a really hard site to work in. The floors are not large, and I think it's 5 floors, so you're constantly going up and down stairs. And logistically, that was a very challenging project, because with a listed building, there's a lot. I mean, we had to get listed building consent, and you can't touch a lot of the fabric of the building, so we can't cut into floors or walls. So you had to build false floors and build false walls, and then hang equipment off that. And the planning was key to that. We spent a long time planning that, and the approval process. And in certain sense, once you got it well planned, and the delivery, 90% of the decisions are made. It's just then the delivery, kind of putting it into practice.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about where people have a clear vision, and you're so right, because quite often, and this spans many different things, people can often tell you what they don't like, but they find it hard to articulate what they do like. So you give them some options. You go, no, I don't like any of those. Right, okay, so what do you like? Well, I don't know. Give me some other options. So when somebody says, we want this, and it has to look like this, and it has to feel like that, and these are our brand colours, and this is the style, and they can give you kind of a playbook of things that they know work for them. That, from your point of view, must be absolute gold.
You were saying you get people that change they change their sort of mind, or change their vision, or how they want it during the actual project.
Yeah. Oh, every project. Yeah. I mean,
really, is it that frequent? They
You'd be surprised not to get it. Yeah. the whole time. And I get it myself. Like sometimes what they think is going to look right when it's actually put up, or the camera is actually installed, or the type of floor goes down, oh, actually I don't like it. It does happen. And something we sort of wanted to improve on is like how we can visualize it beforehand, just to stop this.
Well, I suppose you're stuck with that thing, aren't you? Of either you try and factor in the change of mind day or whatever it might be, or you think, oh well, okay, we won't. Because that, if someone says, well, actually, I don't like that floor, you've then got to take that floor up and put a new floor down. But you then got to order a new floor. It's
and you've got the knock-on trades. Like the trades have been arranged for like weeks.
It must be really hard.
And then as soon as the change, you've got to reschedule that all. So
are there common kind of hidden problems on projects? Is it timings, budgets, getting CQC approval? Are there common things that from your experience that kind of tend to come up in most projects and need managing?
Yeah, it's a good point. We've got two sort of very different project types. A refurbishment or like a fit out in an existing surgery is such a different ballgame to a squat. And it's a lot harder because a squat is an empty shell. You can get a big team in there and, you can make as much noise and as dust as you need to because there's no one there, right? But working in a live practice is a completely different ballgame. And that's, what we came at it from that side, and that is really challenging when you've got, you can't turn the water off, you can't turn the air off because they're working, and you've got patients being seen next door, so you can't, smash the floor up and make an absolute racket. And I think that's probably one of the biggest pitfalls and challenges is being clear and making the team aware that this is what will happen and this is what to expect, because any refurbishment is very disruptive to a project. We always try and say to people, just bear in mind, this is going to be challenging. Get the team on board. One of the biggest pitfalls is just not, perhaps if from a client's point of view, making sure they're aware of what's involved for them. It is a disruption to their practice, and however good the tradesman might be, just to prepare for it, because materials being delivered, for example, a pallet turning up and 20 sheets of plasterboard coming into the practice. It's got to happen. It's got to get in there. And it's just sort of communicating that and working with the teams to understand this is the.
I was just thinking, it must be like things like, I hadn't really thought about it, but you're doing a surgery, you've got other surgeries running, but then there must be like dust and stuff like that. So then they've got a faff about contamination and all that sort of thing that you've probably got to tell them this is going to happen. So you need to prepare for this.
I assume for your part, squats aren't as challenging as refurbs where you're having to work around an existing business. I would have thought a squat where you can go into an empty space, there's no operational business on a day-to-day basis. You've got freedom to roam around as you want. I assume for you that's a much easier project.
Definitely, 100% it is. It does come down to the building type though. Like 11, for example, was a squat, but it was quite a challenging building.
Listed building,
There's so many practices in old houses. And you take up the floors or you take out the cabinetry and all the plaster falls off and you find remains of dead people under the floor. We've had that. Long time ago. But
Bodies.
That is...
Seriously?
Like we knew it was under there. It was sort of a thing in the practice. Like there's people buried underneath here, sort of thing. So,
wow. So what do you do with that then? Do you sort of have to get sort of like a disinterment certificate or something, or people come along and dig them up?
Before I actually joined, but it was quite a long time ago. But I don't actually know what happened. But it's the challenges of a lot of old practices in old houses. And,
I just love the way that someone go, don't worry, there's people buried under there.
What? We are a dental practice, and when it goes wrong, we stick them under the floor.
I was going to say,
it's like Sweeney Todd.
I was going to say, it has an air of Sweeney Todd about it, doesn't it? Because obviously he was a for people that don't know, he was a barber that used to snip people's throats, and then he'd tip back at the barber's chair, and they'd disappear down this kind of chute.
But he'd turn them into pies, though, wouldn't he? Which you probably don't really want to do that.
So you can kind of see some flip-top dental chairs going on.
Wow.
How bizarre.
Yeah, but you get some real surprises sometimes when you start. And often a refurbishment, you've got like 2 weeks, it's got to be done. And then day 2, you take up the floor and you find, all the joists are rotten and like, that is something we've learned over the time. Just like, this is the program, but subject to what we find.
I was going to ask you a question. That's what's the most weird thing you've come across in a refurb? But I think you might have trumped it with dead bodies, really. But is there a second funniest thing you've ever come across?
Goodness, yeah. Actually, one we did come across, which is a good surprise, was a well. Under
nice.
Practice in Cambridge. Lovely practice, and didn't know it was there. Took up the floor, and there was a well. Yeah, like it'd been covered over, and it was a few hundred feet deep or however deep it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell me you put a glass floor.
Did they turn it into a feature?
Did they keep
it's all
it?
lit up, and there's a glass kind of.
Beautiful.
And it was luckily it was in like a corridor, so a communal area. But yeah, it's amazing. There's some lovely buildings around.
Oh wow! Send the link over. I'd love to see that. Yeah. That sounds incredible.
Hopefully, it's like that one in China where when you walk on it, it cracks and scares the crap out of people. Because that'd be quite funny.
We've kind of talked about like refurbs and squats, and we've been together on webinars where we talked about squats. For somebody who kind of gets involved in these projects quite early on, do you have any tips for people who might be thinking about doing a squat? What their kind of checklist should include really early on,
Good idea.
which would help you when they come to you?
Yeah, that's good. Good question. There's lots really I could say. I'd probably just keep it simple because the power of one. And from our perspective, I guess we're involved in a squat just in a limited capacity in that we would often design it, fit it out. There's a lot more into squat than that. There's the whole HR, the marketing, the finance, the business side of it, which you are much more versed in. But from a cost control and what you can deliver as a practice, I'd say one of the most important things if you're considering starting a squat is finding a good site. Touched on it earlier. If you go for if it's an old site split across lots of levels, old building, it's a can of worms, and you don't know what you're going to find. And it's very hard for any honest contractor to say what's going to be involved until it's ripped out. We do a lot in old banks, and there's loads of old banks going at the moment because the banks are closing down. They're often in great locations. But they're often old buildings with huge vaults in the basements and, massive thick floors.
Steel doors.
And security wiring everywhere. And they're really challenging units to work in. And the flip side is you see these sort of high-rise buildings being built with, brand new, just concrete shell, never been fitted out before. I mean, from a cost and kind of risk perspective, they're completely poles apart. You could be half in terms of cost. So I always say to people, like, get us involved or get a specialist involved, someone who knows about dental practice. Just get
at least I guess to understand whether it's viable. I visited Tooth Club. I met Kunal Thacker.
At
one of his sites over in Essex, and that was in a converted bank. And they'd integrated the safe into the practice with it being a TCO room. And another Kunal Patel at Love Teeth. He's got the same. He's got one of his practices. Not sure, it might be Worcester Park. I can't remember. But again, one of those practices again has the safe with the safe door still in place, open, and it's a really nice feature. But I appreciate that there's quite a lot of logistics that comes with that as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But the main things people want to know early on is like looking at the site. How many surgeries? What's it going to cost? And how long is it going to take? And they're really great questions. And
how much?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what's it going to cost? How long is it going to take? And how many rooms? Because at the end of the day, that's what's important. So, it's we really enjoy going around helping people look at that sort of thing. And I would say is be careful choosing a site and involve someone who knows what makes a good site. Because it can make a huge difference to the success of the practice, but also the sort of process in getting there.
Yeah.
Have you ever had, Murray, anyone who's come along with no budget and just sort of said, do what you like, show me your best? Has that ever happened?
Someone asked me this yesterday, actually. I don't think so.
There's always someone always comes with a budget that sort of...
Yeah, there's been some, both ends of the spectrum, some amusing budgets, but also some,
yeah,
I want the best.
I got 20 grand. What can you do? Here's someone else's number.
Yeah. No, that'll be the day. Yeah.
So you're big into the 3 C's as well, and people assume perhaps we're talking about bodies of water, lakes, oceans, but your 3 C's are coffee, chocolate, and cheese.
I've got 4 actually. The other one's cognac, but I didn't put it down.
No, okay, 4 C's.
Very nice. Yeah, it's nice to have an extra phone in there.
Yeah.
On coffee,
In what order?
Are you a coffee snob, or do you just take any old coffee?
No, I'm not a coffee snob. Any coffee, any time, any place.
So a styrofoam
caffeine,
cup still fine by you.
It's caffeine.
Is this kind of like the old school when you're working on a site and somebody brings you a coffee? It doesn't matter what it's like, you're going to enjoy it.
As long as it's hot, doesn't matter what it tastes like. So yeah, no, I drink coffee way too much for it, but yeah.
It's probably hard hat related.
And in hierarchy, how would you rank your coffee, your chocolate, your cheese, and your cognac? I hope cognac's not at the top.
Oh, that's a tricky one. Oh no, they're all served different purposes, don't they? So
They do,
Yeah.
and they're all good in their own right.
I'd say I probably drink more coffee than cognac, but it'd be quite close. No.
What's in that cup you're drinking? Is that a coffee? You can have coffee and cognac. How about that? That's quite a nice little combo, really. Bit of a waste of good cognac, but
Yeah.
Murray, we always ask our guests the same 2 questions as we come to the end, just to get a little bit inside your head. And the first question is, if you were given the opportunity to be a fly on a wall in a situation, where would you be and who'd be there?
Yeah, it's a good question. This is I struggle with this one. Like, how am I going to take this one on? But I changed it actually. Do you know what? I would love to have known. I'm not a particularly politically biased person, but I'd love to have known what was going on inside number 10 Downing Street in the last 24 hours and Rishi Sunak in his cabinet.
right, okay, yeah.
So this episode's going to go out in the future, but in the UK, the general election has been called for the 4th of July, 2024. So obviously we've got a Conservative government, and the Conservative Party aren't in the best of places in terms of opinion polls.
And that's what Murray's referring to, the decision that was made yesterday.
So actually, it was yesterday. They called the general election.
I thought he'd hang on. I must admit, I thought he'd hang on for as long as he could. He had until January.
Is it December?
Oh, is it December or January? Yeah. I thought he'd hang on, get the figures, but then someone this morning said they reckon the numbers might change a bit. So anyway, we'll see.
Must have been a big decision.
It's a big decision, and my hunch is that so much in big politics, as we saw with Cambridge Analytica in a previous situation where we got to vote, is data driven. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if they looked at the time of the year where people are likely to be, what else is going on in the country.
They'll be on holiday.
Holiday. And I think particularly there was talk about perhaps lots of younger people might be in transition, either on holidays or, toing and froing from university. So I'm sure a lot went into the decision and said, actually, this might be the best day for the sitting government.
Hopefully people will vote.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. I'd love to see it behind the scenes of actually how the decisions are made. And
no, that would be a good one.
Yeah.
And if you got the opportunity to meet somebody, to sit down, in your case, it would probably be with a coffee and a cognac. Who would you like?
And a bit of cheese.
If it was a long conversation, exactly. If it was a long conversation,
nice bit of cheddar.
Who would you like to sit down with if you were given the choice?
Yeah, I'd probably have to say Ben Francis.
Jim Shark.
Jim Shark, yeah. A lot of admiration for him. Young guy. I think I'm about the same age as him. And I wouldn't dare compare myself to him, but dropped out of school. Not that I dropped out of school, but I didn't go to uni. I don't think he did either. Better check that actually. But yeah, just an amazing source of inspiration for me, really. Just incredible guy.
He is hugely impressive. I think the thing for me, for such a young guy, to start a business and then step away from that business and bring in a CEO, and he had some time away while he kind of grew, developed and learned, and then came back into the business to grow it further. I don't know who's guiding him and advising him, or whether it was just intuition, but he seems to make incredibly smart and quite mature decisions.
Didn't he sell it for $1 billion? Didn't he do it for over $1 billion?
Really?
Yeah, it's
Not bad at 30 or
And the
whatever
thing
age.
is, like we've got those pictures of kind of Jeff Bezos working from a garage, his first desk. Amazon.
Oh yeah, with Amazon.
Yeah, but there are pictures of Ben Francis in his mum's lounge, kind of folding T-shirts and putting them in bags.
Dressed in lycra.
Yeah,
Was he dressed in lycra?
Yeah.
But it
With his
literally
trousers
was.
tucked into his socks. Yeah.
But also, I think that quite often, I mean, he's an incredible guy, but I think timing is so important. And I think what he had, I mean, the products are outstanding, but he was able to tap into that community of gym goers and create that club feel in that community just at the time when it was really on the up. And he saw something that other people didn't. And he really went for that and built on it. So I think his timing was spot on, but he also had a great product range, and he's a very, very impressive guy.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's such a commoditized space, the clothing industry, apparel. But amazing how he's done it. Yeah, built a brand and very successful. He's got a personal brand as well, hasn't he? A lot of these successful people.
Yes, yeah, and he comes across
for good and real. Yeah,
and he comes across well. There's a degree of likability about him. He seems.
I guess I can relate to him probably in a funny way.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's not aloof.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
yeah, and I think one of my other sons, he's got a friend who's close friends with Ben, and he says that what you see is the guy. He says it's not a front. That's just how he is, and it's always quite nice to know what the other side is, because we never quite know whether we're being played and whether that really is the person or is that just a public image. But by all accounts, that is what the guy's like, which is very impressive.
Did you meet Stephen last week? Did you, Andy, at the dental show?
No. So we were an exhibitor, and it was heavily oversubscribed. But where our stand was, we did manage to peek behind the curtain. And I've since had a chat to Nilesh, who hosted it, and it went really well. It went really well, and listening to him, and he's again somebody else who just has that knack to relate to people, and his narrative is so kind of where people are at the moment, and he tells his stories so well. And he was able to adjust his stories and what he talked about for a dental audience as well, which is good. Because in those situations it might be easy just to trot out relatively generic content, but the things he was talking about actually were tweaked for a dental audience. Good. It was really good. I didn't sit in, but I was able to peek behind the curtain.
I guess.
Murray, it's been a joy. Thank you for your time today. It's been really good. Like I say, I think the business you're in is interesting. I think the stuff that you do in and out of dentists is interesting. And I think it's just kind of, one for our listeners to get a real insight behind the scenes of what really goes in to kind of, your world of dentistry, that refurb, that building. Because a lot of people do talk about squats, or if they own a practice, they need to stay at the forefront of what's out there. And I think you're the sort of guy that they should be listening to. So no, we appreciate your time today.
And the rapid relief team, actually. I thought that was that's educational for me.
Absolutely. That was brilliant.
So thank you.
Yeah, brilliant.
Thanks, Ali.
Thanks a lot for your time. Look after yourself. Cheers Murray.
Cheers, Murray.
Cheers. Ta-da. Thank you for listening to this episode of Dentology, where we discuss the business of dentistry. If you like what you heard, please do subscribe where you found this episode. That would be amazing. And also follow us on Instagram.